Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. Um, I hadn't heard about this artist before, but I'm really happy that I got to dive into some of his work. He's an American artist and printmaker, and his main process is the letterpress. Um, and also, he has a really interesting story of how he became an artist. And overall, I think he also has a really genuine approach to making. Um, Here is some of his work. Um, Most of it is text based, as you can see. He experiments a lot with like layering of actual type and uh, with color combinations, but the content itself he pulls from history, like quotes from leaders of the civil rights movement. Um, but also in a lot of ways, he also pulls from his day-to-day life. This sort of like um, events he um, comes by that are also this like really genuine statements that he encounters through his community or through people that he works with. Um, so his work definitely embodies this sort of like freedom that he's pursuing, and we're gonna see why in a minute. So he didn't start making work until he was 40 years old. Before this, he was working in corporate America, specifically at AT&T, as a programmer. So by all metrics, he was successful, upper middle class uh, worker in corporate, I guess. But he was definitely disillusioned with this sort of lifestyle. Here's one of his pieces that definitely reflects that 9 to 5 lifestyle, I guess. And but all these other layers behind it, as we can see, has all these different either names or sentences, and almost kind of seems like this noise that is behind just this clearness or this clarity that he's expressing. So he got interested in printmaking after taking his kids to a colonial reenactment of Williamsburg, where he saw an 18th century printing process, and he fell in love with it. This is not an image of that, but this was the one I could find. So anyway, yeah, after getting a lot of equipment that was given to him, which he says that in a way was like bestowed upon him. So he got bestowed with this predicament of becoming a printmaker. He started making work in his house. He had his little setup under his staircase. Um, then he applied and got into an MFA program at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, and this is some of his work that started sort of like the direction that he was going to take. It's this work specifically. It's inspired by African proverbs. So as we can see, his work is relates a lot as encountering the world as an African American man. Um, Here's another piece that he made. It's called Lynching, and it is exactly about what the title refers to. It's some of his accounts from that really dark time period of history in the form of a book, and he also layers images and other sort of like symbols, and they're all about how all these tensions work together, um, about all these layers of race, inequality, and also the pursuit for equality. Um, and definitely the black experience, as we can see right here. Um, I really like how he's using letterpress to sort of like build this sort of like atmosphere that it's almost like this whispers, um, or the sort of like noise behind this really clear statement. Something interesting about him is that he, at the beginning, at least during this time period, he didn't want to be called an artist. He just wanted to refer himself as a maker. He thought that there was like some ego related to that, and that in itself it was sort of created this like weird hierarchy, which I can definitely agree with, and I think is definitely present. Um, a designer friend of his, um, that came up with this manifesto about making work for the sake of the community rather than for the commodification. Talked about how his work definitely embodies that, like making art affordable. At some point, some of these pieces he was selling like one for $15 and two for like 20. Um, so still, giving people a deal. Uh, and yeah, like reject the idea that only like rich people can afford art, and that art has to be this sort of like isolated, exclusive thing. Um, I think this is really powerful, especially with how all his works have this like edginess. Well, not edginess necessarily, but this like try to be transgressive. And in a lot of ways, all this like layers and the meaning of the words, and sort of like explore like the agency of the statements that are being made right here. Currently, he lives in Detroit, Michigan. Recently, actually, last year, he was at the Library of Congress where he had a like sort of like a retrospective show. And yeah, I hope y'all enjoy this and learn a little bit more. I definitely did. So thank you so much, and I'll see you around.